when we say brand, what we think is good looking products with good looking labels and good packaging
Right,
is brand.
right.
No, then you have a good looking product with a good looking label. That's not a brand. Your brand is the reason why you exist. I believe that you can only build brands from the top down. You cannot build brands from the bottom up. I don't know rule hai ki nahi, but it works for me. What we call as founder market fit, which is do something where you are the consumer and you
Yeah.
understand the consumer set very well. On the same point of I tell people that I was earning a crore rupees in my job. I didn't need to leave it to do this. I want to A, die doing this, and B, there is no joy for me in making 1,000 crore company if it strays off mission.
Today we have a very fascinating guest. We have the founder of the Whole Truth Foods. Whole Truth is my most favorite brand. I just love Shashank. I'm a massive fanboy. This podcast is not sponsored. I'm just a massive, huge fan of Shashank and what he is building. It takes a lot to innovate in an industry which is just so old. FMCG is run by these massive players. How do you actually build a brand this strong, a brand that is so unique, a brand that truly stands out, a brand that truly has a story attached to it? How do you do branding? How do you run an FMCG brand? How do you actually build an FMCG brand? Because it's an industry controlled by these giants. Very insightful episode. Shashank is a gem of a person. So good. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I'm sure you will learn so much about the FMCG space. And especially if you want to start a D2C brand, you have to learn branding from these guys. I'm very sure you're gonna like this episode, so like and subscribe before you move ahead. Hi Shashank, welcome to the show. We've just rebranded it. I think I was just telling you it's now called Front Seat, and I wanna start with what this name means to me, and I think branding means a lot to me, and I'm very close to brands. We are just talking about how both of us love Apple. One of the key differentiating points that I think Whole Truth has is its brand, and that's the same stands for us. We realize that most headlines around founders are X money raised, X people lay off. Like it's either like extreme
Positive or
vanity
negative.
metrics
Yeah.
or like extreme negative founder thrashing. Ye ho gaya hazar log. So nobody, like very few media houses today are getting like deeper into the journey. So the mission of this podcast is to humanize founders, right? Because I'm very optimistic as a person. In fact, like to a point where I'm delusional. I'm forgetting who said this. I think Sam Altman said this, where be optimistic to the point that you're delusional, and I think I'm that. And I want to look at the positive side, which is take a founder who people have put in a pedestal and then humanize them. Because a 20-year-old who is really scared looks at a $1 billion company's founder and be like, how do I do this,
Yeah,
man?
yeah.
This is like really
This
tricky.
person must be from some other planet. Yeah,
Which is not true.
yeah.
Which is not true. And thankfully, I've been privileged enough to know the story of a lot of founders to realize that okay, humans at the end of the day, if you take the right steps, if you work hard in the right direction, you can do it. So this
Absolutely.
is the mission of the podcast. And with that, I think now that we are talking about branding, I don't want to talk about like a journey. I think you've done enough podcasts already to what is Shashank's journey, what is Whole Truth's journey. I want to dive straight into why I did this podcast. I'm very intrigued to know about the brand journey of the Whole Truth. And I want to start with the anti of it, which is how not to build a brand. I'm sure you have now built a brand, which I love. I was just telling you, I consume 2 bars every day.
Yeah.
My parents are sick and tired of seeing the wrappers in their dustbins, and same goes for my friends. How not to build a brand? What are some things that somebody, while they're building a brand, should take care of to not do this the wrong way?
First of all, thank you so much for having me, and good to know I'll be the very
Second.
early second episode of the rebranded podcast. Uh, I think to answer your question, the first important thing is to align on definition of what brand means. I think it's a very loosely used, largely abused word because nowadays when we say brand, what we actually most of us, including a lot of founders, think is good looking products with good looking labels, with a great looking website, and good packaging
Right.
is brand.
Right.
No, then you have a good looking product with a good looking label. That's not a brand. Brand is what we'll come to what it is, but what it does is, if done right, it becomes a halo which shines on top of your entire product, company, culture, everything, and lifts everything. It's a force multiplier if done right. Now let's go back into the history of products and brands. 200 years ago, brands didn't exist.
Hmm.
When capitalism as we know today was just taking root, how did brands start? You know, initially it was all barter, right? Like, I will give you, like, I don't know, I'm a locksmith. I will, make this for you and you give me bread
Hmm.
in return. And say your name is John and I love John's bread and John lives next door. This is how we live. And in the Indian context, it's a chakki ka atta, go get it.
Right.
There was no brand to chakki ka atta, right?
Hmm.
Then we started moving away from our food sources, right? Job industrialization happened, cities were made, people moved into cities to do industrial jobs and then do IT jobs, etc. And food was manufactured elsewhere. And
Correct.
food used to come
Correct.
from some, we don't even know where our food comes from. So now you and John are separated.
Hmm.
But when you go into a supermarket, you want to know which bread is John's bread because you trusted John, because you know that John used to make his bread with the best ingredients. It used to taste brilliant. He didn't use any random products in it, etc. So you go and tell John that, man, why don't you put a logo named John on top of your bread so that I can recognize it in the supermarket, right?
Correct.
That's how brands came into being. And if you now think of 50 years ago in India, the brands that we've all grown up with, the Tata Namaks and the Bata shoes and the Maruti cars, etc.,
Hmm.
or parachute oil, for example, largely these were branded commodities where before these brands existed, these were being sold in khulla, loose, right? Khulli
Correct.
chini, khulla atta, khulli dal bikti thi. And someone came in and said, listen, I will put nice manufacturing processes around it, make it safely, etc. I will put my logo on top of it so you know that this is being made by Tata.
Hmm.
And for that trust, for that effort, I will charge 2 rupees more than the other guy.
Right.
This is why I'm a brand. Those days are gone. Right now, there is enough regulation. The table stakes have risen. The floor has risen between regulations, the country moving forward, etc. Consumers no longer buy brands just for the promise of ये खा के मर नहीं जाऊंगा, right? Which used to be the promise of trust of brands of yore.
Right.
Now consumers buy brands when the purpose of the brand aligns with who they are. They want the brand to be a reflection of either who they are actually, of who they wish they were. Because we are not perfect as humans, but we look up to heroes and brands who are the perfect versions of who we would wish to be, right? We are not Serena Williams, and that's why we love Nike, because Nike is Serena Williams, Nike is Roger Federer, right? So
Correct.
we want to buy brands now which say something about who we are, right?
Or what we stand
Or
for.
what we stand for. Hence, your brand is the reason why you exist. And if that reason speaks to some fundamental human emotion, like Nike is inspiration. You watch anything Nike and you will leave inspired कि अब तो मतलब कल से भागना शुरू
कल से
right?
gym.
uh, that is what a this is the long wounded answer to say that this is what a brand is. How it translates on your packaging, how it translates in your product, these are all manifestations of that promise.
Hmm.
And consistency across all of these touch points is how a consumer decodes that you are really serious about what you're saying, because whether they go to your website or they pick up your pack or they read an email sent by you or they call your customer service department and they hear something said in the brand tone, this consistency tells them, oh, anywhere I see these guys, they always talk in a certain way and about a certain thing. They must believe in what they stand for. That's brand.
Interesting.
And hence, to answer your question, the bad way to do a brand is to think of it as get a design agency to put a good looking, आजकल क्या चल रहा है मिनिमलिज्म,
Right.
तो चलो एकदम मिनिमलिस्ट सा एकदम कुछ लेबल बना के प्रोडक्ट पे डाल देते हैं, दैट्स नॉट ब्रांड.
This is really interesting. So essentially, I find this really, really cool, especially in your context, because I've seen Whole Truth go beyond bounds to make sure that the customer experience is great, right? Like my LinkedIn was flooded with pictures of people, like putting pictures of their cardboard boxes and that letter that you had sent. That the copy, the tonality across. I know you said that design doesn't matter, but when
No, no,
put in with
design.
promise.
Yeah,
Yeah,
design matters. Absolutely. Oh, no, no,
it's
design
not the
matters
only
a
thing.
lot.
Yeah,
But if you confuse good design for good
with just
brand,
branding.
good design is a tool to showcase a good brand.
Hmm.
Where without a good brand, good design is empty.
I think it's the difference between good design and purposeful design.
Yeah.
What I would call, and I'll take a very small example, right? Putting all the ingredients on the front and back clearly may not be the definition of good design, but
Yeah.
it's purposeful
Yeah, yeah,
design, which
absolutely.
serves a very important promise that your brand stands for. And the reason I'm so fascinated by you as a founder is because we started out with the same sort of core message of trust, right? I've been working with agencies and production houses for the last 9 to 11 years, and I realized there's one thing missing. Either companies hate agencies or agencies hate companies.
Or
It's a
both.
trick, is or both, right? Everybody is either sick and tired, everybody's ranting. Like, because when I was on the brand side, we were ranting about how bad the agency is. When we were on the agency side, we were ranting about इसने तो Friday रात को brief भेज दिया है, Saturday को काम करवा रहे हैं. I'm like, तो why is this the case?
Yeah.
Why both of them need each other? The service agency can't survive without the brands. Brands can't execute, like, after a point of time, the bigger campaigns without agencies. दोनों को need है, but दोनों फिर भी like just. So we realize that there's a lack of trust in something as subjective as creativity. Today, Shrank, I think you're a very creative person, but does that mean that every campaign you do will be creative? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I trust you, and my trust in you will be more if you keep consistently putting out great creative work. So we realize that trust as a word is not used often in the creative industry, and it is the industry which needs this word the most, because you literally take a bet every single time, and to
Yeah.
take like that bet, you only feel comfortable when you trust the other person. So even like, our mission is also build creative trust, which is like our core statement. And one of the things that we did wrong initially was that हमने statement तो बना दिया, but we forgot that इसको अब actionable भी करना पड़ेगा,
Yeah.
right? To make sure that everybody in the team is aligned, even our stakeholders, and we stick to those, even if that means leaving a couple of clients, right? Because not every client will align with this mission. And the reason I'm giving you so much context is because one of the hardest thing for me to do was to align the team to this mission. As the team grew, we grew from 1 to 50, and in that zone, it was really hard for me to make sure that everybody is on the same page. How have you done it? Because you just told me that you have these sales professionals on ground. You don't know what they're talking about. You cannot possibly keep an eye on everybody. How do you make sure that that communication, even on the very grassroots level, is taken care of?
See, the ongoing answer is okay. So, actually, let me first take a step back. First of all, consistency of communication internally comes from consistency of character. If we don't truly believe in what we are saying, if we are also putting up a front, then it won't work, right? So, first of all, it has to be true. This is who we are. So, we can't be any other way. So, whenever I speak, whatever I speak about, even if it is completely outside the context of the company, people observe, right? And
Right.
founder, core team, etc., people observe very closely कि ये लोग अनगार्डेड मोमेंट्स में क्या करते हैं, राइट? जब जब किसी और चीज़ की बात हो रही है, तब भी दे विल यू विल ड्रॉप अ हिंट ऑफ कि तुम्हारे दिमाग में एक्चुअली क्या चलता है. So if that is still on the same point of, trust is the biggest thing, I tell people that, I was earning 1 crore rupees in my job. I didn't need to leave it to do this. I want to A, die doing this, and B, there is no joy for me in making 1,000 crore company if it strays off mission. Right? Because like the money and the revenue is just a measure of the impact in the right direction.
Right.
Otherwise, it didn't need to do this for the money, etc. So one is, I think, when you truly believe in what you are saying, you say it day in and day out, consistency of comms happens and people start understanding. Even if they come in cynical, कि हाँ बोलते हैं ऐसा नहीं होता होएगा, they get it over time. The second one, which I think we've done well, which was part conscious, but the way it played out, I also learned a lot, was by naming ourselves the whole truth.
Right.
And by making this promise that we will always declare each and every ingredient on the front of pack.
Yeah.
And through all the communication we do around it, where we call out others, etc., we've put ourselves A on such a high pedestal, and B, we've made our commitment so public that we've made the consumer the keeper of our conscience. Right? If I now stray off path, my consumer within a second
Will call you out.
will call me out. And it
Right.
happens whenever we even write copy which is slightly confusing. People call us out कि अरे तुमने ये कैसे लिखा है यहाँ पे. Like I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
By mistake in one creative, there was this our muesli is not no added sugar because it has kakwi. Kakwi is basically liquid jaggery, the most purest like form of jaggery, etc. So we use that, and hence we never write because we can't write
Correct.
no added sugar. By mistake, some designer somewhere by mistake, क्योंकि protein bars are no added sugar,
Most things
everything
are.
else is no added sugar, उसने वहाँ पे भी डाल दिया और वो क्रिएटिव निकल गया लोगों के. Within 2 minutes, we had like 3 consumers in a nice but firm way saying, guys, ये तो गलत है ना, this doesn't have no added sugar. We're like, fuck, good you told us, गलती हो गई, and हटा दिया. Like, we've elevated the stakes so high that we
Yeah.
are under such a sharp scanner, not just from competition, which would love it if we made a mistake, but from our own customers. They're like,
Right.
I have now placed such high trust in you guys that you better not fuck up. Right. So I think that's a huge crack here. I hope that this is going to be the reason why this culture will live beyond me and my immediate team, because हमने public commitment कर दिया. You can't get away with doing anything else.
That makes so much sense. I think now the public is holding you accountable that you can't do it. In fact, like I am so close to the brand. I mean, I've no relation. I'm meeting you for the first time, but I feel very close to the brand. And even I would feel bad if you do something which is very off brand, right?
Yeah.
Something that you don't stand for.
Yeah.
And one of the things why I feel very few people can do this is because I used to love Dollar Shave Club and what they used to stand for, and they sold it to the company that they used to
Used to be against.
protest
Yeah.
and be against. um, and that then really, I really question it because I love reading these business case studies. It really confuses me that will then capitalism come one day and just strangle the mission of every single company that I love or people love.
It's a very interesting question. And by the way, Dollar Shave Club was bought by Unilever, which is a competitor of P&G. So Dollar Shave Club came into being against Gillette. That Gillette sells these
Very
exorbitantly
expensive.
priced
Yeah.
razors because they are market leader and no one else can do anything about it. So they challenged them, made a big brand. Unilever bought the brand, saying finally we will also have a razor play against P&G.
Right.
And then the brand is dead now. It's not doing very well now. Right?
Correct.
So I can actually add a even bigger, like even one more nuance to this question. So let's say you're taking funding from some VC fund. The limited partner, the people who invest in that fund, one of them is one of these big companies that
Right.
you are against. Where does that leave you? Right? So the point being, see, entrepreneurs are also human beings, as like that's the mission
Core
of
of.
your
Correct.
podcast, right? And they go through so much hardship, so much suffering. I mean, I'm not saying it's like suffering. It's enjoyable also, but there's a lot of sacrifice, etc. also that goes in that. At some point of time, when they want to see the fruit of their labor, and someone comes in and says, I'll give you X thousand crores for this, etc.,
Correct.
I don't hold it against people if they succumb. It's not as if like we can stand on a mountain and say, oh, you now sold out, you started doing this.
Yeah.
uh, it's a like m- currently I can't even think of doing it,
Hmm.
but I've also learned over time that there's this saying that intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in your head at the same time. I think I understand the other side also of why missionary entrepreneurs who started against something, it sounds very simplistically bad ki, "Arey, the thing you started against is what you sold out to."
Correct.
But it's usually more complex than that. It involves a lot of human emotions. It involves how was the company doing at that time. Because, a lot of times companies sell to large companies like Unilever, P&G, etc., because the company is no longer able to grow and it needs the strengths that these guys bring to grow it.
Hmm.
So if I now change the question to the options are sell to these guys and grow, don't sell to these guys and die, then which is the better option,
Right.
right? Because the good that I'm doing to the world
Hmm.
will die if I don't sell to them. But if I sell to them,
Hmm.
there's a 50% chance they will not kill the mission and let it grow. There's a 50% chance they will grow it, but they might kill the mission.
This is very interesting because as a kid, I remember this question that somebody in my class asked. I don't know how I'm remembering this, but would you become rich and donate, or would you be poor always and keep donating? Because like somebody who's extremely rich can probably uh, give as much amount as somebody would give in their lifetime in a snap.
Yeah. But
And
the data point there, which I can't prove with data, but I know for a fact, at least in India, as a percentage of their income, the poor in India donate more than the rich. 100%.
I have an intuition you are correct.
100%. एंड हमारा वो भी है ना हमारे कल्चर में कि दे के बताते नहीं है मतलब
दे के बताते नहीं।
हाँ सो बट 100% लाइक आई सी people who've gone through or are going through hard times, they actually empathize with people who are going through even worse times a lot more than us rich folks. I would say we are definitely the rich of the country. So yeah, these are super. These are not 40-minute podcast questions, man. We are trying to
These are
solve life
prob-
here.
probably 2-3 a.m. Post a couple of drinks. But
Drinks, yeah.
you said something about poking. You come from Delhi. That I love the Delhi energy. I mean, I've grown up with it, and it's very exciting to see when Whole Truth pokes. I I'm just very intrigued to know. And you cannot answer this for legal reasons, but has anybody like big corporations come to you and be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you better not fuck up the market, or you better not sort of make these claims, because you are kind of uncovering them. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
there's no other way to put it.
yeah. Actually, funnily, no big guy has yet taken any legal stance against us. And
Okay.
in fact, some one or two small, young, startup folks have. Uh, uh, and this the reason for that also I understand. It's not as if the big guys haven't noticed. Of course they have.
Hmm.
Uh, but because I've been at Unilever, I know how the legal system in big companies works. See, for them, losing face is a big problem, right? If they legally challenge a young company,
Hmm.
and if they lose that legal battle, it's serious egg on face.
Yeah.
Because then the story, which is the truth, is Goliath came out to kill David for no good reason. See, the court said the same, right? And when we put out something, and we have to be very clear and safe about it also. So we
Right.
think a lot. We don't do it like bina soche samjhe, right? We
Hmm.
put a lot of sense into what we are putting out. The As long as we are just showcasing publicly available information and not passing judgment,
Hmm.
legally we are not in the wrong.
Correct.
right? Like this is what is written on the nutritional information that you have printed on your pack. But because you printed it in a way that consumers will never notice, I've just taken a magnifying glass and put it there कि इन्होंने लिखा हुआ है, पढ़ लो. Right?
Correct.
I am not saying ये बहुत गंदा product है, मत खरीदो. If I do that, then I have passed judgment and you can, sue me for defamation and shit like that. But I'm to just saying, you know what, ये शायद तुम्हारा पढ़ना मिस हो गया होगा. Please ये पढ़ लेना. That's what's happened till now. But let's see आगे जाके क्या होता है. We'll find out.
Were you ever a copywriter?
मतलब
A founder is always a copywriter.
या मतलब होल ट्रूथ का कॉपीराइटर तो मैं ही हूँ.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think copywriting as a skill is just like really, really important. When I looked at Whole Truth, the first thought that I had was, now this is as an entrepreneur looking at opportunities. Like, अरे बाप रे, FMCG company बना रहे हैं आजकल लोग, like because I live in Bangalore, वहाँ पे tech लोगों ने बैनर लगा के इंजीनियर हायर कर रहे हैं. तो मतलब मैं वो देखता हूँ कि एक साइड पे यहाँ पे एकदम मैडमैन रेस चल रही है, and then there is an FMCG company thriving, which is loved by people. For somebody, and this includes me, if we ever want to build an FMCG company,
Yeah.
what does it take? What are the gears in motion to make sure that an FMCG product is out?
First of all, I love FMCG as a business because in my head, this is the definition of business. हम
धंधा.
मतलब ट्रक जाता है, किसी के हाथ में कुछ माल देते हैं, वो 100 रुपये देता है. That is what I understand of business. I don't understand the financial world कि किसी के पैसे पे किसी ने कुछ प्रोडक्ट बना के कुछ स्ट्रक्चरिंग करके कुछ पैसा बना दिया, मेरे को समझ में नहीं आता. Tech I understand, but yeah, only from a distance. Right? So, and FMCG, since it is this physical goods business, it's actually business as we know it from the past. And to be
Correct.
honest, from a business model lens or business org structure lens, it is what you're taught in B schools as a business. It has operations, it has supply chain, it has finance, it has sales, it has marketing, HR. Everything comes together to build the business. But
Right.
structurally thinking, there are three parts to any physical goods business. There is demand generation, there is production,
Okay.
and there is the fluid connecting these two, which is the supply part of the org.
Okay.
Right? So you have to do some things to make sure that people are asking for what you make.
Okay.
You have to do something to make sure you have the product if people are asking for it. And you have to do something to ensure that ये यहाँ से यहाँ सही टाइम पे जो मांगा है, जितना मांगा है, उतना पहुँचे. Right? This is, now we can break up each part of it, right? So production is, you can have, unfortunately, I think 90% of companies today have third party production. So you will hear about 3P. That's they're saying this production is done by some external guy who produces this for 20 other people and produces this for you also. You are the one who has made the formulation or the recipe, etc. You've given it to this guy, and now he has the machinery, he's making it, he's putting your label on that packet, and he's shipping you product saying मैंने बना दिया, अब आप बेचो.
Got it.
Or you can have your own production, like we do our own production. So
Got it.
there are pros and cons of each. Broadly speaking, speed and ease of business are with a third party. They are experts in that field, so they have economies of scale also. They are doing this for 20 people, so their procurement, their sourcing, etc. is cheaper than yours, and they can turn it around faster. The downside is chances are 20 other people have the same product. Differentiation is very, very tough.
Because the recipe gets like then.
हाँ, और मतलब one guy can't make 20 world-beating, never done before recipes, right? मतलब, because that fellow also has put up some machinery, some capex. He's constrained by what he has.
Right.
So he can only churn out, the delta between the 20 different products that he makes for 20 different brands can only be 5-10% here and there.
Correct.
It can't be 100% here and there, right? For a completely different product, you will need completely different setup, which is not his model. His entire model is, I will put one machine and get 20 people to make on it, because the problem in the beginning is your volumes are so low
Hmm.
that putting large machine, large infra, large number of people for just like 20 units a day doesn't make sense, right? So that's why he pools demand, saying, I will do it for 20 people, right?
Got it.
So those are the pros and cons. Then comes, let's talk about demand generation. Demand generation is what we've been talking about. Create a brand.
Correct.
And one way to think of demand generation is, this is a Unilever model. Think of it as physical reach and mental reach. So mental reach is brand building. How many people are aware of your brand, are thinking of your brand, are actively considering buying your brand? That's mental reach.
Correct.
Physical reach is distribution. How many stores is your brand available in? How many online outlets is your brand available in? Where all do you ship, etc. Because one without the other doesn't work.
Correct.
You put your stock in a lot of stores, but people don't know about it, won't sell. A lot of people know about you, but it's not available near them, won't sell. Right? So demand generation in its simplest form is increase mental reach, increase physical reach. In an ideal world, increase them in tandem.
Right.
That never happens, but as close as possible you can. That's demand generation.
Got it.
And then the org in the middle, that the job of that org is to make these two match. So
Hmm.
you will have demand planning, which is trying to predict अगले 3 महीनों में
कितना बिकेगा?
कौन से देश, कौन से शहर में, कौन से चैनल में, कौन से SKU का कितना बिकेगा, which is a tough job, right? Like how do you,
Wow.
because that's the signal that you have to send to production.
Right.
We are not making in real time, right? We are predicting कि 2 महीने बाद क्या बिकेगा, वो आज बन रहा है, right? So that prediction, especially again in early stages when sales are very sporadic, the trend line is not set, is very tough.
How integrated is this with technology like these days?
Your solutions are available. They're not cheap. They're not like now there are SaaS solutions also available. Uh, but it's very, see, softwares become good when trend lines become set. When trend lines are so random because your base is so small, तुम पिछले महीने 20 यूनिट बेच रहे थे, इस महीने तुम 100 यूनिट बेच रहे हो, that's 5x. No software can predict it. Right? So there's a stage, and that stage has come down. So 10 साल पहले तक access to this software, which was SAP, ERP software, वो used to be a, मतलब 10 करोड़ का खर्चा करेंगे कंपनी वाइड, को बड़ी सी चीज़ होएगी तब डालेगा, which was a big company thing. Now it's
Right.
people have made, like, the tech revolution has like brought down cost, made it a SaaS product. You can buy a much cheaper version, but it's still not 0 to 1 scale में no one puts in.
Excel पे ही चल रहा है.
एक्सेल पे चल रहा है, एक्सेल पे ही चलता है. एक्सेल में फिर थोड़ी ऑटोमेशन लगनी शुरू होती हैं, फिर पीसमील सॉल्यूशंस आने शुरू होते हैं कि चलो डिमांड प्लानिंग का एक बना दिया.
Piecemeal क्या होता है?
Broken up solution. So the full god level solution is called ERP, which is enterprise resource planning, which basically plans. So this problem that I told you of demand planning exists in each part of the chain. So my production team has to take this demand plan and plan manpower, plan machinery and capital expenditure, plan ऑर्डरिंग ऑफ रॉ मटेरियल एंड पैकेजिंग मटेरियल एट द बैक एंड, कि अच्छा इसके लिए इतनी ट्यूब्स आनी पड़ेंगी, इतने पाउचेस आने पड़ेंगे, इतना बादाम आना पड़ेगा, इतना डेट आना पड़ेगा, एक्सेट्रा. माई सप्लाई प्लानिंग टीम हैज़ टू प्लान वेयर हाउसिंग. ओ फक, अगले महीने 5x सेल होने वाली है, हमारे पास तो जगह ही नहीं है सामान रखने की. हैज़ टू प्लान ट्रक्स, कि यहाँ से वहाँ माल जाएगा तो 3 नहीं 10 ट्रक लगेंगे. हैज़ टू प्लान पीपल, कि इतने सारे डब्बे पैक करने के लिए 3 लोगों से काम नहीं चलेगा, 10 लोग लगेंगे.
Correct.
So these are all resources at an enterprise level, which is full company level. To plan these resources, you need a ERP, which is the enterprise resource planning software, which
Got
is
it.
a full god level, like everything included. It has these modules: demand planning, supply planning, warehouse planning, raw material planning, etc., etc.
Right.
You can buy, in your journey, you can buy one piecemeal solution, whichever piece is breaking.
Interesting.
Now you have the ability to, अच्छा दिस ये बिल्कुल फट गया है, यहाँ पे कुछ डालो, फिर ये बिल्कुल फट गया है, यहाँ पे कुछ डालो. सेम बाय द वे, फाइनेंस रिक्वायर्स टन्स ऑफ प्रोसेसेस टू बी ब्रॉट इन, कि तुम इन्वॉइसिंग कैसे करते हो, तुम्हारा बिलिंग स्ट्रक्चर क्या है, एक्सेट्रा. एंड लाइक फॉर पीपल, don't let this overwhelm you. Everyone discovers this on their
On their
journey.
journey.
शुरू में Excel sheet and intent are enough
Hmm.
till a long time. Like
For a long time.
till very recently, we had zero software. We were still running everything on Excel. Even today, we are running 60% stuff on Excel. So there is no, Excel is very powerful.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's demand planning, supply planning, and then the rest of the organization. So there is, you know, when we spoke of mental reach, that talks about सोशल मीडिया एड्स एक्सेट्रा, इन सारी चीज़ों से यू जनरेट अवेयरनेस. ये बनाने के लिए तुम्हारे को डिज़ाइन चाहिए होता है, तुम्हारे को मार्केटिंग टीम चाहिए होती है, तुम्हारे को कंटेंट टीम चाहिए होती है. सो दैट्स वन टीम,
Right.
राइट. When we speak of distribution, it's across physical retail, it's across online marketplaces like Amazon and your own website. ये तीनों चीज़ें चलाने के लिए अलग कैपेबिलिटी चाहिए. तो you need channel heads or sales heads who head each of these channels. You need someone heading a supply chain for the entire middle part. Supply chain, operations, procurement, these are actually three different functions, right? Procurement is all the raw material, packaging material that you have to procure. You have vendors from whom you are
Right.
procuring all of this, उनके साथ rate negotiation, etc., planning उनके साथ, all of that stuff. As you grow, HR becomes an important function to hire
Correct.
and skill for. शुरू में founder is HR and should be like,
Right. Of course.
you should set up the culture in the org, right? So yeah, these are the components. So this is a physical business, which is basically what, if you talk to your parents, this is what they will understand of a
Dhanda.
business.
This is what
ये
they've
धंधा
been
है, हाँ
seeing.
हाँ. This is age old, simple business that you make a product, you sell it, you take money for it. From that money, you invest back in the business, increase capacity, make more product, sell more. That's the.
It makes a lot of sense, and I think it's also easier to understand compared to like the jargons that, let's say, today a Solana hacker house Web3 person is like throwing like, okay, I'm doing this, and it really fascinates me because I come from from manufacturing background. Like my parents have been in manufacturing for the last 20-25 years. So I love the part where it's supply chain. In fact, like how we're treating owls SOP is also maybe like off camera. I'll tell you a little bit about that. But this is really fascinating. But one of the things that um, in this question also is a larger question about the company. Today, entrepreneurs are coming in and they're building for Bharat, right? We were just talking to Kuku FM, for example. They've experienced massive growth, especially paid customers in Bharat. But still, the price point is low. A lot of entrepreneurs to VCs are selling the Bharat story, whereas a whole truth comes in, and your products are not cheap, right? They are definitely not for everyone in the market. $100 I pay for that protein bar. That's $200, right? That's close to 6,000 rupees just spent on a snack. Uh, that's a lot of money, and I want to understand: is that intentional, or is there no other way to make healthy food?
So of course, when we use the quality and cleanliness of ingredients that we use,
Hmm.
our costs are higher, right?
Right.
If our pricing was, so when people say your products are expensive, there are only two possibilities.
Hmm.
Either I'm pocketing a lot of profit, that it's a 20 rupee thing that I'm selling for $100.
Yeah.
If that was true, I should be profitable. I'm not, right? So clearly, मैं महंगा सामान महंगे में बेच रहा हूँ, मैं सस्ता सामान महंगे में नहीं बेच रहा हूँ, right? The other possibility, which is the truth, is our costs are higher
Right.
because what are we doing? We are largely taking something that the big food guys were making with 50% sugar
Hmm.
and removing 50% sugar. Sugar is 20 rupees kilo,
Hmm.
and replacing it with either almonds, dates, cashews, nuts, etc., which are anywhere between 500 to 1000 rupees a kilo, right?
Very
So,
expensive. Hmm.
so clearly my costs are higher, yeah,
Correct.
and hence there's no intentionality to be selling at a high price, because if that was the case, my margin should be so high that I should be turning insane profit, which is
Yeah.
not true, right? Having said that, now coming at it from a strategic and brand lens also, uh, I believe that you can only build brands from the top down. You cannot build brands from the bottom up. So
Okay.
there is no example in the world of a brand which was built for rural and then became a hit in with the rich people and the metros. There are only examples of the opposite. Brands start
Interesting.
with, appealing to the folks in the cities, the because that's the truth of the capitalistic structure, that the rich folks are the ones who are most educated, the ones who are most exposed, and hence they are the opinion makers of the country. What they go after is what the rest of the country follows.
Right.
And hence you can, and for multiple other reasons, not just this, but you can only build a, it's like pouring water downhill or uphill. You can only start from the top and then easily pour water downhill. The opposite is very, very tough. And to
Hard.
give you an example, मारुति जितनी भी फाइट मार ले, आप उनसे 20 लाख रुपए की गाड़ी नहीं खरीदोगे. Even Maruti is now Maruti. They started with 800. The max they've been able to go up to is the Ciaz कि मैं 10, 12, 15 लाख की गाड़ी खरीद लूँगा. उससे ऊपर की गाड़ी आप उनसे नहीं खरीदोगे. And they've tried, right?
Yeah.
But Mercedes, which started with a 2 crore rupee car, today when they sell you a 30 lakh rupee car, people line up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And line up like crazy, like
Ha.
not even like.
So brands can only grow top down. Or you can create a very large brand which will remain a mass brand. It will not
Got
move
it.
up. There are great examples like Ghadi, like Pratap Snacks, etc. in the country who built beautifully large businesses built for the masses. That wasn't my strength, right? Because I think one of the key rules of I don't know rule hai ki nahi, but it works for me, is uh, what we call as founder market fit, which is do
Oh yeah.
do something where you are the consumer and you
Yeah.
understand the consumer set very well. I understand us. I don't understand currently in that depth, how the rural part of this country thinks or the tier 3 part of this country thinks. I don't, right? Their lives are very different from mine, and I don't pretend to, even though I worked in a company where I sold to them, I don't think मेरे को emotionally उतनी depth में understanding है उनकी, right?
Got it.
Uh, this set, me, my friends, people around me, their issues, their problems, etc., I understand very well, right? So even from that lens, and I wanted to build something which was solving my own problem, right?
Right.
So that's what I started out building. But that doesn't mean that we will never go to the rest of the country, right? Strategically also, this is the only way we believe we can go to the rest of the country also. Given my strength, I couldn't have started.
The opposite.
Opposite hota hi nahi hai. Then I could have only made a mass brand from
Right.
day one, but I didn't have that capability either.
What were the early days of the whole truth like? The part where the garage part of building a startup, the one where when you go on a massive stage like a TED and you're like, okay, this is how the whole truth started. What were the early days like?
I had to remember them with a lot of fondness. Of course, the highs and lows were much higher and lower. And by the way, we are yet to turn 3 years old, so everything is early days in the right context. So it's in this
Right.
3 year context that I would say the first year was early days. Uh, there was a lot more uncertainty कि ये चलेगा नहीं चलेगा, are we smoking our own pot, or like this actually is making sense. And touchwood, we got very early signals, right? The brand took off very, very early. Product feedback was very, very high, etc. So we've, to be honest, touchwood, have had a, like, if anyone had told me 3 years ago this will be how your journey will be, like, I would have laughed कि ये तो नहीं हो सकता, और अगर है तो दे दो, I will happily take it,
Got
right?
it.
So now I think human beings also have this tendency of always, no matter how bad they felt at that time, in hindsight everything looks कि वो दिन अच्छे थे, अब
This is
अब वो मज़ा
so true.
नहीं रहा types. But there was some stuff that I remember very fondly of that time actually. When you're a small 8-10 people team, the kind of bonding, the kind of mission orientedness, etc., that you have,
Right.
it's still very high, but that is another thing, right? And you're all in the on the ground together. तुम खुद ही सब लोग रात को बैठ के डब्बे पैक कर रहे हो, और
Right.
और सुबह सेल्स कॉल के लिए जा रहे हो, वो कर रहे हो, इट्स अ डिफरेंट फीलिंग एंड अ डिफरेंट फेज. सो yeah, I think I remember it with a lot
Very
of
fondly.
with a lot of fondness. Some parts of it I miss, some parts of it I'm so happy
Which are the
are
parts that you're
done.
so happy you overcame?
Yeah, production as a challenge. When we took on this stupid, we've done in industry veteran terms, we've done a lot of stupidities, right?
Okay.
हमने when we said कि हम ये बार बनाएंगे, इसमें 4 इंग्रेडिएंट होंगे. हमने अपने घर में मिक्सी में बना ली बार. इट टुक मी अ ईयर, बट बिटवीन मी एंड रचना हु हेड्स प्रोडक्ट फॉर अस, हु इज द मैजिशियन बिहाइंड ऑल दीज प्रोडक्ट्स, हमने बना ली बार. फिर हमने कहा ये
Okay.
बस बन गई है, अब ये हो जाएगा. देन वी वेंट टू अ फ्यू इंडस्ट्रियल थर्ड पार्टी सॉर्ट ऑफ फोक्स
Right.
कि आप ये बना दो. उसने कहा तो कोई चांस ही नहीं है, दिस कांट बी मेड ऑन अ मशीनरी, इतना फ्रैजाइल बार है, ये तो टूट जाएगा, इसमें तो आपको कुछ शुगर सिरप डाल दो या इसमें कुछ प्रिजर्वेटिव डाल दो या ये कर दो. हमने कहा वो तो हम करेंगे नहीं. Then that's when we realized कि भाई, if we are out to solve the food industry, we can't go to the food industry and say please help us solve, right? मतलब इन्हीं को तो ठीक करना है हमें. तो theoretically आंसर was clear, अपना प्रोडक्शन करना पड़ेगा.
Right.
बट थ्योरी और प्रैक्टिस में बहुत
बहुत
स्ट्रेस है
फर्क
यार.
है.
मतलब रनिंग योर ओन kitchen factory, like there are 180 people who turn up every day now to make the product, right? Even at 20 people, especially when you're dealing with food, बहुत फटती है यार. मतलब कि कुछ भी गलत हो सकता है. एंड इंडिया है ना, इंफ्रा लेवल पे इतनी फाइट होती है. छत गिर गई जी. बॉम्बे है, बारिश आई, पानी घुस गया अंदर, किसी का बाल गिर गया है खाने में, कंज्यूमर चिल्ला रहा है. सो एंड हर रोज़ कोई ना कोई एचआर इशू होता है, कुछ कुछ होता है. सो इट्स नॉट like I think in 3 years I am amazed by how Rachna and Apar, who head that piece of the business, have stabilized this entire piece, that now as the founder मैं मतलब barely महीने में एक बार ही, and that factory is like a kilometer away,
Yeah.
मैं महीने में एक बार ही जाता हूँ. like it's part of a large part of my guilt also कि मैं कम जाता हूँ. But it's because they've done such a great job that I get to concentrate on my strength, which is the demand generation
Correct.
part of the business. But the first year I used to lose a lot of sleep over कुछ भी हो सकता है. मतलब लाइक इट्स द फियर ऑफ द अननोन, कि ये भी डर लगता रहता है कि तुम्हारे को इंडिया में कभी पता ही नहीं लगता कि तुमने सारे लाइसेंस ले लिए हैं कि नहीं लिए हैं. मतलब कभी भी
बहुत
कोई
बहुत मुश्किल है यार. मतलब पता है, I want to land for the next 10 seconds. Startup India, we really, the
घंटा
documentation in the country is so
सो
complicated.
कॉम्प्लिकेटेड.
Accounting is so complicated. Uh, कंपनी बंद करना is so complicated. I didn't know that कंपनी बंद करने में भी झंझट होता है.
अरे मैं जानना भी नहीं चाहता हूँ.
मतलब
आप अपने
there
पास
are
रखें.
it is a mess. It is a mess. Before we wrap up, I if you can summarize, this is such a fascinating journey. Not just this, but like आपका Unilever का भी journey is really interesting. And I'm very close to FMCG from another lens. My very very close friend works in PNG, so and he works on ground, like same college, and he leads a couple of divisions in the factory. So I've seen like the on ground workings of it as well, and it's quite amazing. In this entire journey of yours, not just the whole truth, but like पिछले 10-12 साल में, what has been your 3 learnings in the professional world? Carry 3 things that I will definitely tell to, let's say, a fresher who comes and joins the whole truth.
Oh, learnings from, if you can give me a lens of
Larger professional life, that these are 3 things that when you step into the professional life, these are 3 things that you must know.
that's interesting. Actually, I've not thought much about it. While I should, because as I was telling you, we hire a lot of
Freshers?
freshers and first timers, and one of the problems that I see is they don't have a benchmark in life, right? So they don't know what to expect from a workplace,
Right.
right? So, and it's a funny thing, but somehow human beings, and all of us, it's not about being a fresher or anyone. I think at any point of time we have a choice which part of us do we allow to win. We can either allow the optimistic, positive side of us to win, or
Right.
the negative, ranty, cynical part of us to win, right? And somehow workplace pe chances that this latter one comes out, where the minute the company एक तो I've always hated this concept of the company, right? Because I keep telling people
Okay.
when we were 15 people old, it was very easy to tell people कंपनी क्या है. Look around you, ये रही
Right.
कंपनी, ये 15 लोग इस कंपनी. But when it becomes 500, it seems like there is this 501th person in the room somewhere, which is this, you know, separated entity called company, but it's
Correct.
actually our collective actions
Hmm.
which make the company. And I see that a lot of time young folks who come in into jobs, they get very easily colored by the older cynics in the system, who will be like, यहाँ तो ऐसे ही होता है, यहाँ तो कोई नहीं सुनता, यहाँ ना तू तुझे छुट्टी लेनी है तो चुपचाप से चले जा, किसी को बताइयो मत. Like, you can either,
This is so true.
right,
This is.
you can either fall into that trap.
Hmm.
I would advise people that, you know, I've been both a reportee to many brilliant and not so brilliant managers, and I've been a manager, right? I can guarantee you all good intended leaders wish that their people came up to them and just asked whatever is going on in your head, rather
Yeah.
than assuming, just come and ask, right? So that would be my biggest advice to young people who are entering the workforce, that you have a huge strength, that you are not yet cynical, you're not yet colored, you're not yet set in your ways. Use that strength, and just like the Indian judicial system, assume your manager, your leader is innocent until proven guilty, and walk up to them and ask doubts.
Right.
Keep that curiosity up. I am telling you, the best leaders in Unilever, which is one of the best companies in the country that I've seen, are
Hmm.
the ones, if there's one thing that connects them, they are the irreverent kids at heart sort of people who don't give a damn कि मैं 50 साल का 30 साल एक्सपीरियंस का वेटरन हूँ. They will still be the ones who are asking stupid questions in rooms. They'll still be the ones who are, you know, randomly saying, but हम ये क्यों नहीं कर सकते, and people are saying, अरे सर क्या बात कर रहे हो, ये तो नहीं हो सकता, etc. People who don't lose that innocence, people who don't let the cynic in them win during their career, who make sure that, you know, that positive enthusiastic guy is the one who keeps winning day in and day out, are the ones
Right.
who make it in their careers. So don't fall into that trap, would be my biggest advice.
That was such a beautiful answer, and I think I faced a lot of this. मतलब मैंने इतनी ज़्यादा jobs नहीं करी हैं. I've always either worked part time or freelance. But I remember कि जैसे ही जाओ ना, मतलब there is your peers, in fact, or your immediate managers, not like your main reporting manager. They're like, हाँ ये this is how
This
this is
thing
how this
works.
this is how this thing works. Like
Works,
as if
yeah.
it's some mystery that you
Ha.
have to, and they will, and those things they really get to you as a 21,
Yeah,
22-year
yeah.
old.
I
They really get to you, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
live by them because you also don't want to like break your camaraderie with like your group and the friendship that you have. So I think I completely agree with you. We have this ritual in the podcast where towards the end we do a role reversal. So you ask me one question since I've just been asking you a lot of those. So any question that's in your mind?
Actually, I'll ask you about this only. So I've lived a very pre-startup, a very structured life, right?
Hmm.
Engineering, MBA, big company job. Uh, you've always, you said, lived the, and by the way, interestingly, I don't know if your audience knows that you're like a Bits Pilani person who then became, got into the
I don't
creative
talk
field.
about it a lot,
Uh,
but huh, yeah.
so tell me about that life. A, going from engineering into, how did you decide कि engineering तो कर ली, वो भी from one of the top schools in the country, but अब मैं creative field में जाऊँगा.
Hmm.
And B, you seem to have lived from gig to gig, startup to startup,
Yeah.
etc., which is a highly unstructured ups and downs वाला life versus मेरा stable middle class नौकरी करूँगा journey. How
Right.
does that life look?
I think one thing which I've seen really good entrepreneurs tell me is that as an entrepreneur, you have to be okay with ambiguity because that's your life from now on. Somehow, I've always been okay with ambiguity because I've seen my father being okay with ambiguity. We used to live a life where I've seen ups and downs really often because he is like our families have only done business. So the fact that I've seen them do it and also get out of it gave me a lot of comfort. why did I do engineering was I've always been a very studious kid. My mom's very competitive. She made me study. वो मैं केजी में था, वो बोलते फर्स्ट आना है, तो मतलब उन्होंने हमारे घर पे एक डॉक्टर है, एक इंजीनियर है।
हाँ,
तो वो जो थ्री इडियट्स है ना, वो हमारा घर ही है। वो कि बचपन में हम पैदा हुए थे, एक बेटी डॉक्टर बनेगी, बेटा इंजीनियर बनेगा, दोनों बन गए। दीदी डॉक्टर बन गई, मैं इंजीनियर बन गया हूँ। However, content actually started before even engineering. I was in class 8th when I made my first YouTube video. तब content को content भी नहीं बुलाते, तब video बुलाते थे. And at that time, I did it because I was the boring nerd in school who used to go home, do his homework, and used to have 4 hours, and that's it. क्या करूँ 4 घंटों में मैं sports नहीं खेलता था because I was terrible at sports. So I just started utilizing those 4 hours, got into content. The reason I wanted to do IIT was very simple. I love my parents. I'm very close to my parents. And if they had put in a dream in my head, it wasn't my dream. I'd be lying if I say that IT was my dream. It was their dream that I was fulfilling for them. So I thought कि might as well just do it. इतना मेहनत कर ली है. I'm so skin deep in this. Like 10 साल से भी यही कर रहा हूँ, तो might as well do it. So did that. But at this point, I had started my first company. I remember we were making like 30,000 a month. And happy kids, right? As 14-year-olds, if you're doing that, buying games, just doing like cool stuff. The reason I chose BITS was very specific. I was getting other colleges, but BITS has a very good culture of entrepreneurship. But
Yeah.
more than that, they have a 0% attendance culture, which allowed me to freelance throughout college.
Wow.
So while yes, I was living this ambiguous life, gig to gig, startup to startup, it never felt like that. I've always seen this life. Plus, to be honest, I had the backup. I mean, bits sure, I did masters in chemistry and mechanical. दोनों मुझे कुछ नहीं आता है. And it's not like I'd get a job, but that name gets your foot in the door.
Yeah.
Right? Today, there are so many alums working in so many companies कि कहीं ना कहीं मुझे generalist की नौकरी तो दे ही देता
मिल ही
कोई.
जाएगी. हाँ.
So to be honest, yes, on the face of it, I did take a massive risk, but I had worked hard for a safe option as well.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's
that तो I agree यार कि like when I was also leaving my job, people are like कितना बड़ा रिस्क है, इतनी बड़ी नौकरी. क्या मेरा रिस्क क्या है कि 2-3 साल ट्राई करूंगा, नहीं चला तो वापस जाके 1 करोड़ रुपए की नौकरी करनी पड़ेगी. इस मेरे से बुरा तो किसी के साथ ना हो टाइप्स, राइट? मतलब मेरा रिस्क क्या है यार लाइफ में. And even on the point of actually, just as a last note on entrepreneurs should be good with ambiguity. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm very bad with ambiguity, right? Because I've lived a proper middle class जैसी जीनी चाहिए life. I
Right.
don't do well with ambiguity. I actually believe, as everything in life, your weaknesses are your strengths and vice versa.
Correct.
I think this has become a strength now because now I spend inordinate time trying to think through all the variables and all the vectors and all the angles of this problem कि क्या क्या फट सकता है. तो उसके बाद भी मैं 9 चीज़ें सोचता हूँ, 10वीं चीज़ फटती है. दैट्स अ डिफरेंट मैटर. but like, because I just can't live with the fact that every time something happens which I have not imagined,
Right.
I like badger myself कि साले तू you
ये
that
क्यों नहीं
means
सोचा
हाँ
तूने?
that means you didn't think enough about
Yeah.
this, because I am so uncomfortable with ambiguity
Right.
that when ambiguous phase is going on, I am spending inordinate time just imagining it, and imagination is my strength. So I am just imagining this from thousands of angles. I'm going to random angles जो जिंदगी में कभी नहीं हो सकते, मुझे भी पता कि नहीं होंगे, लेकिन imagination है.
So you plan really well.
हाँ, I think so. That
That's
and again, like many entrepreneurs correctly so will say planning beyond a point is stupid. मतलब इतने
correct.
infinite variables हैं world में, which is true. You can't control all the variables, but yeah, you got to live with what you have. अब नहीं मेरे को ambiguity पसंद, तो मैं क्या करूँ? मतलब
ठीक है. I think one ambiguity I hope never comes to you is a legal battle.
easily.
Because we'd love, I think, as consumers, just keep poking. I think that also gives us like a lot of excitement. The
Excitement,
brand we believe in is fighting the like Carl, we recorded this conversation at Owl with Kalpe and Kunal. And Kalpe talked about brand building a lot. And one person actually asked a very tricky question to him, right? Like, OnePlus poked the bears and then became part of the group,
Yeah.
right? So maybe a conversation for another day. But
I've bookmarked that chat. I haven't seen it yet. देखूंगा.
it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good having you.
Cool, man.
I'm
Pleasure.
just very happy that you took the time out. I know it's really, really valuable and we took a lot of it. So I can only be thankful for that.
No, no,
It really
please.
means a lot to me.
Loved the chat and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.